an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go.
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go!
EAGLES, Eagles.
And a good free agency Tuesday morning, everybody. You got your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. When we signed off 22 hours ago, we knew there was going to be activity. We knew the Eagles were going to be involved. Didn't know they were going to make as big 3 deals as they did, and one specific one at one specific position. Yeah, you could have knocked me over with a feather. But as I said last night on WIP, and you say it all the time here, Johnny Mac, that oftentimes Howie Roseman likes to zig when other people are zagging. And I would like to say that given Saquon Barkley a 3-year, $37, almost $38 million deal was a zig, but there were other backs in the league who got paid yesterday.
Yeah,
so it's like
how about that?
a collective zig by the National Football League. Nobody really zagged and stayed the course and said, we're not going to pay running backs. Other teams did, but the Eagles did it at the very top with Saquon Barkley, something that had been rumored for weeks here in Philadelphia, that Saquon and the Eagles were infatuated with each other. I always thought that the price tag was going to be too big. It ended up not being. What does the addition of Saquon Barkley mean to the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, you're right. First off, about the running back market. I mean, and for the second consecutive year, the first player off the board to the Chicago Bears from the Philadelphia Eagles. Last year it was TJ Edwards. This year it was DeAndre Swift, who got over $8 million. You could have knocked me over with a feather right there. Done that he got over $8 million, and bang, you got Tony Pollard gets over, Josh Jacobs getting. And by the way, the Packers move on from Aaron Jones. That guy was unbelievable down the stretch last year. There were some questions, and then the Eagles with Saquon Barkley. So, look, I didn't see it coming. I'll be the first to raise my hand. And a lot of people like to play gotcha and say, McMullen got that wrong. Yeah, I got it wrong. I'm 100%. I think it would have been irresponsible to tell you people watching Howie Roseman's history that, oh, yeah, he's going to pay potentially $47 million to Saquon Barkley over 3 years. And by the way, when the contract comes in, the real numbers, it'll look a little bit more team friendly. That happens with every contract because these are agent-driven numbers, obviously,
right,
that come out right away. And that's who I need to apologize to. It's Kim Bialy, who's Saquon Barkley's agent. I assumed when I heard Eagles and Cowboys, I assumed right away, well, she's trying to generate the Giants to make another dumb decision and sign Saquon Barkley to a big money deal. What better way to do that than to get the Eagles and Cowboys involved, your two biggest rivals? No, the Eagles wanted the player. And I'll also go back to 2017. What have I always said about 2017 and Christian McCaffrey? Yes, the vast majority of times Howie Roseman is not going to pay a running back, but there's always the outlier. There's always the exception. Where you could have knocked me over with the real feather, Jody, is that the Eagles have evaluated Saquon Barkley and said this is an exception. And by the way, with Saquon, I'm talking about 1,500 touch Saquon Barkley, post ACL surgery Saquon Barkley. If you're giving me 2018 Saquon Barkley, I can buy it. I haven't seen that player. That's my problem. We had Jeff Kerr on yesterday, who follows Penn State football like a religion, said he's not the same guy. That's what I see. What the Eagles have said, and I checked in, and what the Eagles are saying, they're comparing the impact. I want to make this very clear. The impact of Christian McCaffrey on the 49ers last season, not the traits, because they're different styles of players, but they think Saquon Barkley can have a similar impact on their offense. And this is where I completely go in a different direction than the Eagles. I think they're wrong. I think it is a huge mistake. Huge is probably the wrong word. It's not going to matter. It's not my money. But it doesn't make any sense to me. It goes off their typical philosophy because they think this player. So everything's always, I say that all the time, everything's always about evaluation. They're evaluating that this is a splash difference making player behind the Eagles offensive line. Remember, I think it's fair, and you pointed out, because you like Saquon better than I do it.
Yep.
And you have pointed out, rightfully so, that might have been the worst offensive line in football last year, the New York Giants. And they might have had worse quarterback play than that. Their quarterback play might have been worse than the offensive line. So he was up against it. I think that's fair to point out. And I think it's fair to point out, yeah, he's going to be better behind the Eagles offensive line. Jody McDonald would be better.
Yeah, I can run better.
But here's where you're starting, in my estimation. DeAndre Swift, 1,060 yards, Pro Bowl berth, 4.6 yards per carry. The year prior, 1,260 yards, Pro Bowl berth, 4.9 yards per carry. Miles Sanders. That's your floor with this offensive line. That's your floor with this offensive line. How much more production are you going to get than that? How much more production than you even want? Because is he going to get 1,500 yards? Are you going to make this a run-first offense, which Eagles fans might like, but I don't think Jeffrey Lurie would like, and take opportunities away from A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert? How much are you where's the production coming from? Where's it going to get better? Now, the one and ironic aspect the Eagles haven't had, other people made a big deal out of this. He's a very good pass protector in an era where nobody pass protects in the backfield. And I've talked about that in the past. That's a bigger deal than people realize. And this is a good guy, a 3-down back who can pick up the blitz when he needs to pick up the blitz. And that's an improvement. But you're not paying that trait.
No.
You're not paying that trait.
No, I would argue that with you during the year. Kenny Gainwell's the best pass blocker. He stays in blocks twice a game. That's it. So for 2 plays, you're going to play Kenny Gainwell over Swift because he's a better pass blocker. They don't do it. They don't ask their guys to do it. So it's not that big a deal. And the fact that Saquon is better at it than anybody the Eagles had last year is nice.
In many years.
Right. Does it really move the needle? No, not a whole hell of a lot, because they don't ask them to do it. It's great if you can do it. But if then they call a play and your job is to get out into the flat and you don't even pick a guy off on the way out, who cares? So I agree with you on that. It's an
I think I think it's a little bit more important than you do, because I think blitz pickup is a big deal at times, especially in high leverage situations. So I think it's a far bigger deal than you do. But you're not paying. That's like Chip Kelly saying Riley Cooper's a good blocker as a wide receiver. All right, you're paying wide receivers to catch the football. You're paying Saquon Barkley to run and catch the football. He's better. Don't get me wrong. I want to make this very clear. He's better than DeAndre Swift. He's better than Miles Sanders. But he's going to have a Christian McCaffrey-like impact. That's what the Eagles are telling you with this move. Not traits-wise. They're not similar as, again, styles of players. but that type of impact, I just don't agree with their evaluation of this particular player.
Yeah, I'm closer to agreeing with it than you are, because I do like the player, and I do think he was severely handicapped by the team he was playing with the last several years. And in a better situation this year, I think he'll be that much more productive for the Eagles. And at least what I heard yesterday was they really did try and keep Swift. They made Swift what they thought was a very fair offer, and he was just kind of predetermined to, I'm going to check the market. I want to go out and I want to see what I'm worth. And the Chicago Bears said, you're worth $8 million per year, which is more than you thought or I thought or everyone but on DeAndre and his agent might have thought. So it wasn't like they had to have Saquon Barkley. They wanted – no, they were good with Swift. They listened to the John McMullen soliloquy you just put out there and said, it was no pretty damn good with Swift last year. Do we need to go a little above and beyond? Well, they found out that they needed to because they couldn't get Swift done. Because Swift decided to take it back to go elsewhere.
The Swift didn't want to come back because he didn't like the way it was used in the offense. Now, you could, and I'm sure they sold him. Well, we have a new offensive coordinator. It's going to be different this year, but he wanted to be more involved in the passing game last year, and he didn't see it. He was like, yeah, I'll not to say he wouldn't have come back if the Eagles didn't offer him more money, but I got that in the season that, look, this guy's not necessarily going to come back because I think everybody thought he's a Philly guy, he wants to be here. And I was like, pump the brakes on that because he's not necessarily happy. But they did try to get him back, and obviously would have been more cost effective. That's the two things that could bowl me over with a feather. I said the first one was their evaluation of the particular player after 1,500 NFL touches. You got to throw that in there. People look at his age and say, he's only 27. Yeah, but 1,500 NFL touches. And he missed a year, essentially. A lot of traffic over the years with the New York Giants because they built the team around him. So that makes sense. And then the second part is, all right, because at the end, it became clear the Eagles were in on this thing. I'm like, they're going to have a limit. They're going to stop at some point. They're very disciplined. They always do. I bring up Marcus Williams in the past, Xavier McKinney yesterday. They were in on Xavier McKinney. The Packers just went and they said, all right, we're done. Christian Kirk. They wanted Christian Kirk a couple years ago, and he got overpaid. The Jacksonville tax, I called it at the time. He's turned out to be a very good player for them. They had to pay more because they were a bad team, bad organization. The Eagles are like, Godspeed, good luck. And it's actually worked out well for Jacksonville. They tend to bail out on these things when it gets too crazy. And they were the crazy ones. With this particular player, they wanted Bob Houston wanted him. Chicago wanted him, but Chicago was out early because they got DeAndre Swift at a much more acceptable price. And the Eagles went totally uncharacteristic. And as the quote I got was how he loves the player. And when he loves a player, he's going to go get him.
And I'm good with that. And even though it's more than I thought the Eagles would be willing to pay, I understand what his contract is because I think of Saquon Barkley as the top 2 or 3 back in the league. And he's now the 4th highest paid back. It wasn't like he reset the market because yesterday the Eagles did reset a market. It's called guards, and they made Dickerson the highest paid guard in the history of the National Football League. So it's not like the Eagles are unafraid to set the market. They didn't do that at the running back position. There are still 3 backs in the league that make more money even after getting the contract that you and I were both surprised by the amount of it. You still got 3. McCaffrey still makes more. Jonathan Taylor still makes more. Alvin Kamara still makes more. And that's average annual value, which there are a lot of different ways you can interpret a contract. So once we get all the down and dirty details of the Barkley deal, which we don't have yet, then we'll be able to compare it to the other ones. But just on average annual value, he's 4th highest paid in the league. I think he's a top 4 back. You want a top 4 back? You pay for a top 4 back. They did. And I think, yes, he'll be better than DeAndre Swift was or Miles Sanders was. So if you want to, The league itself kicked the bar up yesterday. Eagles had part in that by giving Barkley
the I mean, that'll be the thing. And by the way, I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Eagles got it right. I hope Jody McDonald's right. I hope he is a top 4 back. I've seen no evidence of that. None. And like I said, you can put the context in of the bad supporting cast. That's fair. I always say put the context in, because I don't like people when they say certain quarterback lost to certain quarterback, because there's a whole lot of other people contributing, and those whole lot of other people contributing to the New York Giants weren't very good. So I think that's fair. But I think if you look at his history, other than his rookie season when he was phenomenal, and he was certainly a top 4 back. And then he had a pretty good second season, but tailed off. And then he got hurt. And ever since he got hurt, not even been close to a top 5 back in this league. And I'll pull up the PFF rankings, which are not gospel, but if you're not, you don't have to just listen to me. He was 3rd of 62 as a rookie. Big time. I mean, he was phenomenal as a rookie. And if they were getting to 2018 Saquon Barkley, I'd say, damn, that's going to be something. 2019, still pretty good, 22 of 58. 2020 get injured, so you throw that out. I think he played 2 games. 2021, 58th of 62. And you could throw that out even because he's coming back from the ACL. So I'll even throw that one out because he was much better in 2022. That was his second best year. He was 15 of 60, which is solid, but certainly not top 5-ish. In 2023 last year, 35th of 59. I've seen no evidence of this guy being a top 5 back other than his reputation and when he came out and his tremendous physical gifts. And again, that was pre-ACL surgery.
Well, and I'm not buying into the Jeff Kerr. Oh my God, since he got the ACL, he's just not the same back. No, he's playing behind bad teams, bad lines, bad quarterback play. You and I have said this way too many times on the show. What's the first thing a DC does when he gets to Monday and he starts to plan for the next opponent? What's the number one thing we have to stop? It's been Saquon Barkley for years with the New York Giants. No one else gives you any pause if you're facing off against the New York Giants. If you're a defensive coordinator and you're facing the Giants on Sunday, all right, how are we going to stop Saquon? What are we going to do to slow down Saquon? How do I have to situate my players so we don't get beat by Saquon? And then you figure everything else out because it's Daniel Jones and a lousy offensive line. I'm putting a lot of stock into the fact that he played.
Well, you have to, and I don't blame you because you have to. There aren't a lot of comps, and there's never an apples to apples comp because there are very few teams who build teams the way the Giants did, and the Giants made a mistake. I think we can all acknowledge that.
Not mistakes, not mistake as in singular. Mistakes for years.
Well,
they couldn't do it. They set forth a plan and then completely botched it.
Yeah,
and it wasn't because they took Saquon Barkley. It was the botching of the plan. It was everything else.
Well, no, I think the plan to build the foundation on a running back in the modern era is a poor plan. That's what I'm saying. Not many teams do it. Yeah, they've made a ton of other bad decisions. There aren't a lot of comps. The only comp I can come up with is Tennessee, who built the foundation on Derrick Henry. And they didn't win, but they won a lot. They didn't win a Super Bowl. And he's proven to be a top 5 back consistently over the years. Now, they've made better decisions. They've had better players around them. So, again, it's never an apples-to-apples comparison. But that's the only other team I could come up with. And Derrick Henry, I'll pull him up, 2 of 62, 7 of 58, 1st of 70, 17th of 62, which was his low water mark. 7th of 60, 3rd of 59 last year. Consistent production. That's been a top 5 back for a very long time. Now, I wouldn't advocate the Eagles sign him either because there's too much tread off the tire there. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it a little bit. Now, McCaffrey, and situations are different because McCaffrey meant nothing to Carolina because they're a disaster. with San Francisco, he means everything, but they have everything in place. The Eagles, in theory, have everything in place, so it should be much better. It's going to be much better.
Johnny, I don't think you can say that everything in place when they acquired Christian McCaffrey. Brock Purdy hadn't started a game yet in the National Football League.
I mean,
so they didn't have everything. They didn't have the most important piece, the quarterback, according to you, who tells me that he's a game manager.
So he's still a game manager. That's not the point. Deebo Samuel, I'm talking about the other skill position players. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. They had all that in place. The Eagles have all that in place. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert.
So then what's wrong if they have all that in place? What's wrong with getting Saquon Barkley, just like the 49ers?
No, I'm saying that's a better argument. The situation, you don't build a team on a running back. That's dumb. That's what I'm saying. The New York Giants were dumb to try to build the foundation of a team on a running back. The Eagles aren't doing that. So that's a positive. He doesn't have to come in and be the guy. And if he is the guy, it's probably not going to be a great season. But so that part of it is okay. That's better. That's far better than New York. But yeah, I don't get this being McCaffrey was the outlier for the Eagles. And now they have another outlier, a second outlier, and it's Saquon Barkley.
Which you can absolutely believe that Howie Roseman feels that way because they've never had a chance.
Feels that way.
They've never had a chance at Saquon Barkley. Like McCaffrey became available. They had the chance to go get him. They decided the 49ers were paying too much of a premium price and they pulled back. Saquon Barkley was never on the open market. He was never trade fodder for the Giants. This is the first chance they ever had to show that, yeah, they really like the player.
Understand. There's no doubt they really like the player. They already proved that by what they've done. This is a sea change for this organization. This is a tendency buster for this organization. They've already proven they love the player. I'm saying I disagree with the Eagles on the evaluation of the player. Hopefully I'm wrong.
Yeah, you and I disagree. I think Saquon is good. I'm just surprised that they made the jump and made the jump as high as they did. I didn't think they would get to that kind of number for a running back. So yeah, that takes me off guard. But now that they've done it, I'm good with it. I think Saquon Barkley is going to be dynamite for the Eagles. All right, quickie timeout. We get our first guest up, a guy who's been covering the Eagles for a long time, and will certainly remember the name I'm going to bring up when we discuss Bryce Huff of the Jets coming to play the Philadelphia Eagles, a guy who I'm going to comp him to that I know Les Bowen knows quite well. Les Bowen up next here with us on Birds 365. Stay there.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Free Agent Tuesday here on Birds 365. There'll be more signings today, and then Wednesday they can all become official. We're talking about what the Eagles did yesterday. You got Johnny and my take on Saquon Barkley, and we're going to ask Les O'Bowen about Saquon Barkley too. But I want to move on to the next big move the Eagles made, because in reality, the Eagles paid more for a pass rushing specialist than they did a running back. I think even John would have to agree. Saquon Barkley is going to have a bigger impact on how good the Eagles are this year than Bryce Huff will. And yet Bryce Huff got $51 million.
I don't know, but I don't know if I agree with that. Les is speaking up. Les.
All right, Les, go ahead and tell me why Bryce Huff is going to contribute more to the Eagles being a good team next year than Saquon Barkley.
Well, I just think edge rusher is a more important position overall, but I don't know, but I do like some of Bryce Huff's stats.
His pressure stats. Do you have a pros and left? I froze before. I think Howie's screwing with my Wi-Fi. So see if you can bring Les back up.
Yeah. There we go. He's like 3 in that. There we are. He was top 3 in the league last year in a lot of these stats.
He was tremendous. Jack Churchill helped him out.
You were saying you were going to, Jody, you were going to say that you wanted to make a historical comparison. I'm going to bet that historical comparison is Hugh Douglas. Perhaps.
That would be incorrect. Do you want to take another guess?
Well, I got nothing then. He was a Jets. Hugh was a Jets pass rusher. The Eagles brought in and did very, very well with.
Came from the Jets, right? That there are some
maybe a little more of a. Well, no, he wasn't a 3-down guy because they took Hugh off the field and running downs a lot. But it's. I think it's something they needed to do. Whether he's as good as they think he is, we'll see. He hasn't played the snaps. They're going to have to go back to more of a rotation, I think, regardless of who stays at that position, along with Bryce Huff. I don't think he's going to play 700 snaps. I don't think the guys they had last year should have played the number of snaps they played. Part of it was the defense not being able to get off the field. But I think that's a good move. I think, he's been connected with them ever since the end of the season, really. I mean, that's the one free agent that I think a lot of people over and over again have said the Eagles were going to do. And I don't know. I don't do film breakdown of these guys or anything, but I think he's a darn good. He gets off the ball really, really well.
I'll give you the guy that he reminds me of from previous Eagles iterations. You remember the Jason Babin era, correct, Les?
Oh, yeah, very, very well. Jason Babin would get like 15, 16, 17 sacks, but
Jason Babin would have fit in well last year. Nobody on the same page. Just do what you want to do.
Well, my problem with Jason Babin was that if he was in the backfield and they handed the ball to the running back and the running back bumped into him, Jason Babin would say, "Excuse me," and let him, because that wasn't his job. And he felt, I'm not here for that. Quarterback's got the ball. I'm here,
Correct. And if you check out the newest Eagles stats, they are very similar to Jason Babin's stats.
Well, Babin was an elite pass rusher. He was just kind of a jerk, and he,
he's the only guy who didn't like Jason Kelsey, by the way. And all the time, Jason Kelsey's the only guy. He's the only guy I can find. Yeah.
I don't know. I think there were a lot of things having to do. Babin and the Washburn. Washburn loved him so much he wouldn't let Brandon Graham on the field. There was a lot going on with the Jason Babin situation that I really don't think we're going to have. I don't think that's a great comp, Jody. Maybe you're right. We'll see if you are during the season.
I think it's a dead-on comp. Jason Babin had 18. Count them. 18 sacks. 18. There's only 2 players in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles who had more sacks in a season. Clyde Simmons, Reggie White. That's it. He had 18 sacks. By the middle of the next year, they jettison his ass.
And that was the year that I figured out that sacks aren't the be-all and end-all of everything.
Yeah, they just gave Bryce Huff $51 million for sacks.
You can have a defensive line that gets a couple sacks a game, but if that's all they ever do and they don't, they're not getting consistent pressure, they're just getting those few sacks.
Well, that's why Jody and I had this argument all the time, Les. I'm a big pressure guy because pressure's consistent, and that's where Huff, I think, stood out to the Eagles.
And some of the metrics on that, like Josh Sweat supposedly had a good year with pressures. Well, is it a pressure when you're being guided past the quarterback and you sort of swipe at him a little bit? I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely a subjective nature to it. But, Chris Long talks about this a lot, and you're close to Chris. And I always bring up Chris because of the NFC Championship game. That was a pressure that changed that game completely. It go to the Super Bowl. Chris Jones, the 49ers are going in to potentially win the game in overtime. It was a pressure that stopped because the receiver was open. Brock Purdy just didn't have time to get him the football. That was a pressure that held him to a field goal. Then Kansas City goes down and scores.
That's a very good point, John.
Yeah,
that's an excellent point.
So many games are defined by that. Yeah,
it's hard to. It's a term that gets used for a lot of different things, but there are times when it's very, very accurate. You're right.
Yeah, and sometimes overcome it. Sometimes,
but I'm interested in what they're going to do with. There's a lot of talk about Sweat and Reddick could both be gone. That's going to be
definitely getting rid of one of them. And guess where Huff plays? He plays on the left side. He's played almost strictly on the left side. He made Jack Driscoll's life hell.
Not true. Huff went back and forth between both positions. He played both sides.
By the numbers, he lined up on the left side. And that's Hassan Reddick's side. And look, and Hassan moves occasionally. I'm not saying they don't move occasionally, but the vast majority of time, Hassan Reddick's on the left side.
Right, but
he makes
I think you said Huff plays on the left side. Huff plays both. Huff played both sides for the Jets. They moved him around last year. So Hassan was, always on the left. But Huff showed versatility to play both sides.
But he projects on. That's what I heard. I'll double check. But he's more of a left-handed player. He's more on that side. Not that guys move around all the time. Brandon Graham plays inside, but he's a defensive end the vast majority of the time. That's where I think the Eagles are projecting him. If that's the case, it's more likely, and it makes sense from the standpoint of Hassan. Right now, he's at $15 million. But he doesn't want to play at $15 million. So he wants upwards of 20 plus, maybe 25 million. So to me, that makes the indication that he's more likely to go than Josh Sweat. Agree with that or not, Les?
Yeah. But I don't know what Sweat wants either. Similar contract situations, right? Is the Sweat?
Yeah. Well, he wants an extension. Yeah, but can he ask for as much money as Hassan Reddick?
That's a great question. He's younger, but he hasn't done as much. I thought he was worse down the stretch last year, although that's a comparison that's really moot.
That's everybody was bad. It was just levels of bad. Yeah.
I'm in a weird position with Hassan Reddick. I really like the player very, very much. unfortunately, my wife and I invested in a Hassan Reddick jersey for our oldest son's birthday just last month.
You got to go throwback always.
And this has been a kiss of death for us going back decades. That kid, his first Eagles jersey was Javon Curse. He also has a Connor Barwin. I love Hassan Reddick, but if you talk about those guys that make $25 million a year,
yeah,
I don't see Hassan Reddick as Myles Garrett. I honestly don't. I
think that's fair. No, I don't. There's like two people on the planet.
Do you not think he's as good as Bryce Huff? Since Bryce Huff is now making more than Hassan Reddick?
Well, he's not making $25 million a year.
Hassan's making 15 and Bryce Huff is making 17.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. I mean, if they wanted to pay Hassan 20, I'd probably be all right with that. But I just don't think he's, top pay, very top. My impression is that they've offered something in the 20 range, and that hasn't been good enough. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the Eagles would be fine with Hassan Reddick if he wanted to play on the final year of his deal at $15 million. They'd say, yeah, let's run it back. Yeah. I mean, there's no problem with that.
Yeah, no downside to that at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
He might end up having to do that if they don't get a good trade-off. I think that's kind of something lurking in the background here that, people haven't really digested yet, is they're not going to just have a fire sale. Somebody on social media was telling me, well, the Eagles have to be fair about this. These other teams, they have to sign him to a contract, so they're not going to give that much. Why should the Eagles care?
Have to be fair about anything.
That's not the Eagles' business.
Yeah, but here's why the Eagles should care less. If you're going to say, sorry, Hassan, didn't quite get the offer that we wanted for you in a trade, and we evaluate you at $20 million, let's say. And there was a team out there. His agent knows who they are. And maybe they were going at 21 or 22, whatever the number is, it exceeds what the Eagles are putting on the table. Yeah, we're going to ask you to come back and play for your 1-year salary at $15 million. In a locker room that doesn't have Jason Kelce, in a locker room that doesn't have Fletcher Cox, in a locker room that's got a guy who's sitting squarely on the hot seat as the head coach, you want an unhappy Hassan Reddick coming in there? I think Hassan Reddick needs to be one of the leaders of this team next year. And you're going to go, hey, sorry, you signed the deal. Play for the $15 million you're supposed to. That's a recipe for disaster.
That's a solid point. I don't know how Hassan Reddick reacts in that kind of situation. But I do know that teams do this all the time. I've seen it happen. Teams ask guys to play in the final year. I wouldn't do it with my quarterback. I wouldn't have him ticked off. But at a lot of positions, it's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles. We'll see.
Yeah.
You make a good point, but I'm not ready to say, oh, God, they have to do something because they can't possibly have Hassan Reddick here in the final year, not feeling good about this situation. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about Saquon.
Saquon, Les, I don't know how much you heard, how he was fumbling with my internet, evidently, because I'm not a big fan of the move.
He gets Big Dom to do that,
Jody, a bigger fan. Look, I bring up Christian McCaffrey all the time because the Eagles wanted to draft him in 2017. So there are outliers. And Howie has always said that. And they tell you with this contract, they believe Saquon Barkley is an outlier. So typically, I always laud the Eagles. Almost generally, when they make decisions, Les, I understand the decision. I might not agree with it, but I understand it. It makes sense to me. This one doesn't make sense to me. I think they misevaluated the player. Am I right or wrong?
I don't know. I share some of your concerns. 3.9 yards a carry last year. I know they had a horrible offensive line. I didn't see a lot from Saquon Barkley last year, really. I'm the guy that, like the last time I was on here, I was making fun of Giants fans thinking this was the be-all and end-all of existence, is whether they were going to get rid of Saquon Barkley. A running back, to me, I would never have drafted any running back second overall. They could have drafted Lamar Jackson in that spot. But the big piece here to the puzzle that's missing is we still haven't heard from the new offensive coordinator, Kevin Moore.
Yeah,
we don't have any idea. Maybe he feels he had Austin Eckler in San Diego or LA Chargers last year. Maybe this is something he said he needed. Maybe they're going to throw to the running back a lot, which Nick Sirianni hasn't done that the Eagles used to do. Saquon caught, I think, 91 passes his rookie year.
Yeah. Well, if I can get that Saquon, I'm happy with it. If I can get rookie Saquon, I'm all on board.
Right.
I just haven't seen that guy.
Right. I haven't either. I was very surprised that they did this. However, I will say that sometimes we sort of stake out an idea of what we think the Eagles' position is, and we overstate it. And I think I did this and other people did this with the running back thing. When I really looked at it, and somebody had to remind me of this on social media. I'm not that smart. But when they had LaShawn McCoy, they paid him at the top of the league. You know, it's not that they're not willing to pay a running back. When they had DeMarco Murray, unfortunately, they paid him at the top of the league. They just have made a decision since then to approach it from another angle. But it's not like they've never had an elite running back and they wouldn't ever pay an elite. We all kind of got a little carried away with that, I think.
Well, I think it would be, to me, the demarcation line is Howie 2.0. So when Howie came back, that's when the scale back began.
Right.
Of devaluing the position. They devalue certain positions. I think it's fair to say that. Now, I've always pointed out there are outliers because he did want to draft Christian McCaffrey, but it's going to be very rare. Very rare, and it has been. Now, they drafted Miles Sanders in the second round, but they weren't willing to give him a second contract at all 1,269 yards and 4.9 yards per carry, by the way.
They weren't willing to pay Miles Sanders. They were willing to draft Miles Sanders.
So it's always a sliding scale. And I've heard from people that they think this player is somebody who can bust the tendency, who's that good. And that's sort of where the disconnect is with me.
Yeah,
it always comes down to evaluation.
It is going to be different, but with the offensive line, but without Jason Kelce, we don't know how different it's going to be. I mean,
it's still going to be good, though.
Yeah, that's true. And maybe, Saquon's a big guy. He's like 230. Maybe he takes a few of those. Maybe they don't do quite as much tush push, brotherly shove. Maybe they hand it to Saquon a little more on short yardage. I don't know. But they certainly could use him in the passing game to get. Well, this was my joke that I was going to use is that they're paying all this money because blitz pickup was such a disaster.
Yes,
Saquon's really good at
the blitz. He can. Yes.
Of course, you don't pay that much money for blitz pickup, but it's something he does, and he's also a good outlet if your quarterback is under pressure, as Jalen Hurts often was last year. You can get it to Saquon, and Saquon might actually, go out and get you a first down or something.
And you have to dedicate a guy to actually stay it and pass block. It's really nice if you're really good at it. But if the play is never designed for you to do it, who the hell cares how good you are if you never did? I forget which game it was last year. It was one of the games that I thought they overused Gainwell. And
week one?
After week one, it was somewhere in the middle of the season. And I said, how do you not have Swift in there for 75% of the snaps? And John said, well, that's because Gainwell's such a better blocker at picking up blitz.
I said he's better, not he's good.
Okay.
He's better.
So then that next week, I charted it. And Gainwell played 34 snaps, 35 snaps, whatever it was. He stayed into block one. 35 snaps. He stayed into block once. He had blitz pickup once. So who the hell cares if you're good at it? If you're not actually going to put that in as part of the play, you got to stay in, even if it's just.
Well, I think a lot of things are going to change, Jody. That's why we have this offensive coordinator now. And again, not having heard from either Moore or Fangio, we're kind of flying blind here with these acquisitions. We don't really.
Yeah.
I have to think that these guys have a lot to do with these priorities. neither one of them had any connection with Nick Sirianni, and they brought him in here. And
well, Vic was around a lot in the Super Bowl year.
That's true. That one year he was here. That's a good point. I'm wrong about that. But Kellen Moore, has no connection to Nick Sirianni. And maybe to get him here, maybe they had to give him some promises that they would get some people that run the offense the way he expects. I don't know. I mean, we saw Nick talk at the combine like it wasn't really going to be Kellen Moore's offense after all. We don't have any idea right now what the hell they're going to do. But
hold on. Let me follow up on that. Did you buy that, or was that Nick just flexing?
Well, the previous press conference, the one where he said it's going to be the offensive coordinator's offense, he also said before that in the same press conference that it would be a melding of the two. And then he said it would be the offensive coordinator's offense. And everybody grabbed onto the second point. It's kind of like the Bible where you can find anything you want.
Oh, yeah. But I tell Jody all the time, Nick contradicts himself in the same press conference.
Yeah, so we honestly don't know yet. I mean, we have no idea. I got to think Kellen Moore doesn't come here to run Nick's offense or to try to shoehorn a few concepts into Nick's offense. But in the absence of Kellen Moore, I don't know. But one point I wanted to be sure to make here, I don't want to get you too far off on a tangent, but these things where, a lot of fans are like really excited about the Giants fans are, peeing on their Saquon Barkley jerseys.
Yeah, I saw that.
I've seen a lot of that in the NFC East where a top player goes to the other team. Yeah. And usually Sean Jackson with the Commanders had a lot of good games against the Eagles. But, Washington got Jeremiah Trotter. That didn't work. They got Donovan McNabb. They were all excited about that. They had a big press conference, and they were like chortling about that,
So Albert Breer,
the Eagles with DeMarco Murray, that was going to be, Dallas, ha ha ha,
Here, Les, to your point, my cautionary and a larger point league-wide, a cautionary tale about free agency, because generally the really, really good players never get to real free agency. They get tagged or they work out a deal.
Right.
Tag as a placeholder. They rarely get there. So basically what you have is a bunch of B-level guys getting A-level money at the start, along with A-level expectations. So 2 years from now, you're going to see all these names. A bunch of them are going to get cut. They're going to get redone. They're going to get things, rework contracts, or they're just going to get moved on. So right. Albert Breer went back to 2022, and you can do this with anyone.
I saw that. Yeah.
Ravens' Marcus Williams is now the only player left on the list of the top 11 at the time who hasn't taken a pay cut, been traded, or been cut. One of 11.
Yeah.
And it happens every year, and that's the reason. B-level talent getting A-level money with A-level expectations. So don't get really excited. Don't get really down. Generally, most GMs are smart enough. If it doesn't work out, they can move on quickly and go in a different direction. Now, it's really difficult. You got to build through the draft more than free agency, but free agency is very splashy.
Let me hold your feet to the fire here, Johnny Mac. Saquon Barkley, A-level talent or B-level talent? Bryce Huff, A-level talent, B-level talent?
Both B-level talent.
Yeah. I think you can make the case that Bryce Huff might be an ascending player, which you can't make with Barkley. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right. Here's my Bryce, because yes, I think he will be Jason Babin part 2. A guy who will be just as good and signed for half the money is going to be a guy who was rumored to be coming here in Philadelphia. Of course, it's going to be a Vic Fangio play. Andrew Van Ginkel, who was Huff's teammate at Wisconsin. He was actually drafted in the 5th round, unlike Huff, who went undrafted. He signs for 2 years for $20 million with the Vikings, and Eagles had to go 3 years, $51 million for Huff. I'm telling you, Andrew Van Ginkel's a better football player. Why is that? Why did Huff get more money? Because an analytic says he's got a big win pass rate. I'm sorry. I know what I watched this year. I think Van Ginkel's a better player.
Yeah. Jody, I have to think Vic Fangio disagrees with you. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked Van Ginkel. I thought the Eagles.
Yeah, I thought he was one of the guys we all looked at and said they might go after Van Ginkel.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He can actually, he's one of those pass rushers that can actually drop into coverage, and the whole fan base doesn't go, it's, I would have been very, very interested, but.
There was one, I will say this, since Van Ginkel's more of a pass rusher, but you mentioned dropping in coverage.
More of a pass rusher than who? Not than Huff.
No, as a player, he's more of a pass rusher
than an off-ball linebacker.
Yeah, off-ball. He's listed as an outside linebacker, though. So edge player. He's an edge player.
Right.
The Eagles signed a linebacker. This was more of a typical Eagle move.
Yeah.
Zach Baum. Is that the right name? I did so much work on Barkley and Huff yesterday. I didn't even get to Zach Baum. He's a former 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
Never really splashed in the Saints, more of a special teams player. This seems like a typical Eagle move. They see something, they throw him out there and see if he can contribute as an off-ball linebacker. This to me is more in convention what the Eagles typically do. Not saying that's good or bad, because they don't see the value
tends to be in free agency. Howie has done real well in past years after the first wave of free agency crests, and you're getting guys for reasonable money who aren't superstars but will play a role on your team. I don't know anything about this guy. I read that he was a special teams guy in New Orleans. Obviously, they like him. Again, we haven't heard from Vic Fangio. We don't know what he likes. But
another Wisconsin guy, I think, by the way. Wisconsin.
Well,
how about that? We got Cam Jurgens and everybody.
Can we get DJ Edgewood back? If we're going to get all the Wisconsin guys, can we get DJ back?
Yeah.
How about Ron Dane? Can he come out of retirement?
Ron Dane's not a Wisconsin guy.
Cam was Nebraska,
though. Pine Valley guy. We're taking credit for him down here.
Well, that's right. Cam was Nebraska. I'm sorry. Wrong red and white Midwestern team. It's all the same to me.
Understandable. Chicago. Understandable. All right, Les, the Eagles did miss out on one player. They were evidently big players for Xavier McKinney. They were really trying to set Giants fans off. Packers just went to
$17 million a year.
$17 million.
Yeah.
So the Eagles clearly want a safety. Our old buddy D Gunn says CJ Gardner-Johnson might be coming back. That'll obviously be much more cost effective. They're going to add a safety at some point, right?
Yeah. That's the one thing from yesterday that I kind of took that I didn't like is a lot of safeties and linebackers signed. And those are the two positions that Eagles fans really want to see addressed. And you didn't really see, other than this Baum guy, you didn't see any of that. I was surprised. Xavier McKinney, frankly, if I were, not having the depth of information, obviously, that Howie Roseman has, but I would have made that a bigger priority than either of the guys they brought in.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I don't know that I would have paid $17 million a year for him. But that would have been a huge deal for me to get a young safety who can really play.
Good player. Yeah. Good player.
And there's a lot of guys went off the board, like we mentioned Van Ginkel, that would have helped here. And now you're looking at kind of plugging holes a little bit rather than bringing in a real Now, there was a lot of confusion last night about Patrick Queen. Apparently, ESPN fell for a parody account that had him signing with the Seahawks, and he didn't. but I haven't heard that the Eagles are in on him.
He's going to be expensive, I think. Still,
but still,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah, maybe he's the tendency buster.
Back, you can say,
I should learn from my mistakes. Maybe he's the tendency buster. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe it's Howie 3.0.
Yeah,
the new Howie Roseman without having to go to the other side of the building.
I like
that. Got to break your tendencies. He's a very good player. That would be really impactful for the Eagles defense. But I'll believe it when I see it.
So let me ask you this one, Les. There are, for me, 3 safeties that the Eagles should be looking at right now. They didn't get McKinney, who I thought was the best player available. Did he get paid a little bit more? Did they up the salary ceiling with safeties? Yeah, I was surprised. I thought it was going to be less than that. So I'm not going to fault the Eagles for not getting it done if they were heavily involved and the Packers just blew them away. Simmons, Curl, CJGJ. John's a fan of the Commanders kid. So we know CJGJ well, his upside, his downside. And Simmons has a tie to Vic Fangio, and for me is one of the best safeties in football. He's going to be the most expensive for sure. Curl probably somewhere between Simmons and CJGJ. If you could get him for what is fair market value, if we say that the McKinney signing was slightly above fair market value, what do you think the fair market is for the guy you want of those 3? Which would you prefer the Eagles to sign?
Boy, I don't know what the fair market is there. Simmons is the best player, but he's 31 years old, or will be by the season. CJ, he had all those interceptions the year he was with the Eagles.
Yeah,
I didn't like his overall act very much at all, and I think that was manifested when he left. There's a reason why he bounces around the league like he does, even though he's a good player. I think that's a guy, you were talking about Hassan Reddick in the locker room. If Hassan's not happy, CJ on a bad team or a mediocre team or a team where there's an occasion to point fingers, I don't know. Maybe. I'd kind of rather see one of the other 2 guys. I like Cam Curl a lot. And I certainly like Simmons, even though he's old, and it would be a huge giving him a deal longer than a couple years would be really, really risky. I don't know that Simmons is going to blow the market away, though, at his age. I think people are pretty smart about that now,
Yeah, it's stunning. Aaron Jones just signed this morning after Green Bay cut him. I don't know if anybody saw the Packers down the stretch last season. This guy was the best running back in football. The best. He was unbelievable. Now, he was injured during the season. I think he's 29. He's going to be 30. And he got $7 million.
Yeah.
On a 1-year deal. Clearly, it's about tread off the tire and all that kind of stuff. And people don't believe. And once you hit 30 and you're downgrade, I don't necessarily disagree with any of that. But I mean, how do you play that well down to, and everybody's like, I'm going to give this guy 12. They give Josh Jacobs, who had a terrible season, 4 years and $48 million.
Yeah.
After watching this guy run for 600 yards, and he had 3 touchdowns in the playoff game in Dallas. He destroyed the Cowboys single-handedly. Jordan Love was great, but he was sort of the key to it all. What am I missing, Les?
I don't know. That whole market is so weird. Late last night, Joe Mixon suddenly got cut.
Yeah, he's 30ish too. So
but it just seems like they're so fungible, which makes what the Eagles did a little even more head scratching.
Which, by the way, Eagle fans, Saquon Barkley's going to be here 2 years. I know he signed a 3-year deal. When the details come out on it,
right?
I'm almost guaranteeing you it's going to be a 2-year deal.
Or it'll be reworked if he's playing well. It'll be reworked.
Right. Yeah. There's no way he sees all 3 years of that contract. Not happening. You're right. It'll either be worked or reworked, or he'll be told, "Yeah, we're moving on for another back."
I agree with that.
It's not going to be a 3-year deal. Mark my words. Sometimes people just interpret, "Oh, he's going to be there all 3 years." We got a guy on the stream that I'll bring up when we let Les go, who just doesn't get the way the National Football League and contracts work.
It doesn't work in the players' benefit, that's for sure.
No, it does not. Not you are 100%.
Unless you're Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. So last things that I know you've done these columns thousands of times in your career, Les. First day of free agency, give the Eagles a grade. A+ staff. Boy. Gotta put you to work, Professor Bowen. Yeah. You got to give me a grade here on the Eagles day one of free agency.
I give them a B. They made 2 big moves. Neither one of them addressed a vital, lacking. The edge rusher, you kind of knew they were going to do. I give them a B. I'm not as excited about Saquon as some of the fans are. I kind of agree with John a little bit. It's a solid B. I think they got some talent. I don't think they did anything that's going to cripple their salary cap or anything, but they didn't address the biggest holes they have.
At Les Bowen, make sure you follow Les on Twitter. Writing about the Eagles. You're going to write about something with Les Bowen, Sean. You got to write about Saquon. I'll be reading. So make sure you check out Les there. I'll end it here with you. And thanks for jumping on as you always do. I'm going to get Eagles fans mad on one day. And this is a snapshot and it's meaningless because this is one day of free agency, but Jody went the grade route and it's silly. But on one day in March 11th, 2024, the New York Giants got better than the Philadelphia Eagles. They got Brian Burns.
Yeah, I would have been.
They got John Runyon.
Yeah.
They got Devin Singletary to replace Barkley, who's coming off a good season in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
The New York Giants did better.
2 quick points to make, and I don't want to monopolize your time here, but I actually texted with John Runyon Sr. after that trade. John Runyon Sr.'s big free agency deal with the Eagles that was a landmark deal in 2000, and the most money anybody ever. That was for $30 million, the same as his son got, except his son got it for 3 years. And John signed for either 5 or 6 years at $30 million. I was kidding him, hey, your kid, he got the $30 million, right? He only has to play 3 years. He thought that was pretty funny. But what was your other before that? What would you say?
I said the Giants added more than the Eagles.
Yes. Oh yeah, Brian Burns. Yeah,
Brian Burns. I'm not talking about contracts because
wouldn't you have traded Carolina those picks for Brian?
That guy can
Burns?
Play. And all of a sudden, you have Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, who seemed to turn the corner a little bit last year.
But the Eagles have Bryce Huff, who's got a better win rate than either of those other two.
Yeah. Brian Burns is more.
I'd rather have either of those 2 giant pass rushers. You and I agree on that one. Yeah. Les, great stuff. Always appreciate it whenever you opt in. Thank you much.
Les.
Les Bowen's John. Check out his website. He'll be joining about Saquon Barkley. I guarantee you. Check it out later on this afternoon. He's here with us on Birds 365. All right, thanks, Les. Jody Mac, John McMullen, hanging with you on Birds 365. Hey, I want to do you guys a favor. Let me do you a solid by telling you here's your chance to save up to 40% on your car insurance, and do it right now from one of JAKIB Sports' great partners. Here's what you need to do. Call one of their 2 managing general partners, either Jim or Fran, and tell them you're a friend of JAKIB Sports and Birds 365.
Hi, I'm Jim Muehlbronner, Managing Partner at Del Val Insurance Group. Give us a call. We're a local, knowledgeable agency, not an 800 number. Go Birds!
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
You got your Mac guys here on Birds 365. We've got Chris Franklin from NJ.com joining us in just about 10 minutes from now. So you want to stay tuned for that. Johnny Mac, I did want to address one of our streamers here because he took a pretty good shot here. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. And there's the gray area where you don't know yet. You got to wait results to come in. But I think our streamer is just flat out wrong. The point I made about Hassan Reddick, that if you don't get a deal done, Les suggested that they could just bring him back on the last year of his deal and tell him, sing for your supper, that big guy. That doesn't usually work with star players, guys who are at the top of their game. Just, suck it up, play on the last year deal. Now, number one, it's disadvantageous for the Eagles because Hassan Reddick, the way they structured the contract, has a $21 million cap hit this year. So if the Eagles were to go there, number one, not the greatest situation for the Eagles.
No, they don't want to play him. They don't want to play him there. We were just talking about you. That's what you're saying about Saquon. When it does come out, it'll be more of a 2-year deal, and it'll be all kicked back. It'll be a big cap number in the third year. And if the Eagles, if things go well and they want him back, they'll want to redo the deal. Same thing with Hassan Reddick. They don't want that deal either because of the cap number.
Right.
So, it works both ways with how the Eagles.
It's disadvantageous if the Eagles say, well, play on the last year deal at $15 million per, but a $21 million cap hit, which isn't good. And here's
largest on the team, by the way. Largest on the team.
Right. Above and beyond all other Eagles. Here's the other thing that Jeremy Glasser Hyman doesn't get, who said, too bad he signed the deal. He will be a leader so he can get a good contract the next year. You are wrong. Here's the thing
by the way, we already went through this. He wasn't happy last year. Now he's a professional and he went about his business, but he wasn't happy. Were you happy with last year's results? Because he outperformed his contract in year one. He wanted a tweak. You remember he showed up to training camp, ironically, with a tweak in his groin. And we're all wondering, oh, was this a hold in, the new age hold in the NFL? It was called the situation. The what's the situation? Nick Sirianni downplayed that there's no situation. Hassan is a good guy. He was a pro, but he wasn't happy. You don't want unhappy people in the locker room, period.
Right. And here's where his line of logic just holds no water whatsoever. Football is different than basketball, baseball, hockey, guaranteed contracts. In all those other sports, you sign a contract, the length of contract, the average annual value, locked in, guaranteed. In the National Football League, that's not the case. If you don't live up to your end of the expectations of both sides when you sign a contract, you know what the team does? They cut your ass. So when the players overachieve and they play above and beyond what the contract expects them to play at, yeah, they're going to stand up and say, no. It's time we redo the deal. You guys got a bargain for me last year. You want me to continue to play at the same high level? You want me to be a good leader on the football team? Let's talk about a new deal. It should cut both ways. If the team is going to be able to jettison you anytime they want because a contract is structured without guaranteed money, well, then the players got every right to go, hey, time to renegotiate. It has to be fair on both sides. He will do it because he's under contract. The contract is no, it's not. No, it's not. It isn't. The NFL guys, you know how many guys got cut in the last 2 weeks, John? Just so teams could get under cap. They signed contracts. The team should have honored those contracts. No, they don't. That's not the way things work in the National Football League because it's such a high collision sport, injuries and the like. The NFL doesn't fold their tent. Hey, even yesterday, Kirk Cousins had to sign a contract that wasn't fully guaranteed. He actually might never see the fourth year of that contract. It's two different situations. You can't give me he'll do it because he's under contract. That doesn't work in the National Football League. Got to learn what you're talking about, Jeremy. Come on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. Everything you said was right. And you never hear me blame players for wanting more money. And I advocated Hassan Reddick should have held in after the Super Bowl year because his leverage would have never been greater coming off the season he had. He was clearly underpaid, outperformed his contract. Instead, Eagles rolled the dice, unhappy player for the majority of the year. Things didn't go well. Not saying that's the only reason. There were plenty of reasons. But yeah, I mean, that's not how it works. And the Eagles, the most valuable piece of advice he gave in that soliloquy, Jody, was the Eagles don't want him to play under this final year either because of the cap number, because of how they do business. They kick it to the back end. That's why you're going to be paying for Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox into 2025 because the Eagles use Boyd years as well to kick cap money back so they can do more things immediately. It's not as cut and dry as a lot of fans think it is. You muted yourself, Jody.
Thank you for that. I coughed. That's why I forgot. I put myself on mute there for a second. Thank you for that, John. Yeah, there are some details to contracts that you got to understand if you're going to comment on contracts. If you're going to come on stream, comment on contract. Oh, he'll do it just because the contract says so. That's not the National Football League.
By the way, speaking of contracts, do we got to go to break? Where?
Not yet.
Lando, highest paid guard in NFL history with the extension. We should mention that. At least average annual value. Well deserved. Boy, that 2021 top of the 2021 draft is looking good for the Eagles. Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson. That is a feather in Howie Roseman's cap. Already a two-time Pro Bowler in 3 seasons. For those wondering, again, we talk about contract.
That's exactly where I was going to go. Those who are ready to go, oh, how did they take care of Devontae?
Yeah, exactly.
They will. They just don't have to yet, the way contracts work.
Yeah. Landon was a second-round pick, so you don't have a 5th-year option. They have a 5th-year option on Devontae Smith. And, oh, by the way, Devontae Smith wants to wait for Justin Jefferson's contract, CD Lamb's contract, and when not that he's going to get paid like those guys, but
drag up.
Yeah, rising tide lifts all boats.
That's right.
It goes up, it goes up, it goes up, and there's no problem. The Eagles are going to want Devontae Smith back. The Eagles are going to re-sign Devontae Smith. But yeah, it makes all the sense in the world that Landon Dickerson went first because they don't have a fifth-year option on Landon Dickerson.
And maybe I'm talking out of turn. You tell me, J-Mac. I think this takes it to about 99% that Landon Dickerson is staying at guard, that they're not moving him to center. There has been some people thrown out there, hey, Dickerson was a center. He was drafted to replace Kelsey, so he's going to go to center. No, he's not. He's locked in at guard for these next 4 years, the highest paid guard. They're not going to make a center, which I know Jason Kelsey's great. We all love Jason Kelsey. Shoot, we missed him already. Centers don't get paid. Not that kind of money. No shot.
Well, I'll never say never if Cam gets hurt or something of that nature, and you have a better guard, then you have a better backup center. He can play center. He played center last year when both were hurt. Kelsey was banged up for a very small time in a game. Cam was already out, and they moved Landon to center for a couple snaps. He can do it. I mean, he was an All-American in Alabama as a center. He was the second heir apparent to Jason Kelsey. Isaac was first, Isaac Seumalo. Then it was Landon Dickerson. But yeah, he's played so well at left guard, they don't want to move him unless they have to move him. And the assumption is that Cam Jurgens is going to be a pretty good center as well. So that's the plan, and the plan ain't changing unless somebody gets hurt and there's something crazy that happens.
And yeah, oh, by the way, we touched on it quickly when we had last on. John Runyon Jr., a big contract. Big contract.
A little bit more than I thought he was going to get.
More than you, more than me.
The guard market was like the running back market.
Yeah.
And the Eagles helped that with Landon. The Eagles got that started.
But there were some people that you got to get a guard. They can't just go into it with Tyler Steen. You can't throw him to the deep end of the pool. Whatever. They just better get Suo Opeta back. That they're a little light in numbers right now. And of the Pro Football Focus, they ranked the free agent guards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of the top 8 guards already signed to contracts.
Yeah, well, that's what happened. I mean, yeah, the second level, which is we're already at it. That's how quickly it happens. I mean, that's where you make your money, man. You find the guys that maybe are a little bit undervalued, underutilized, and if you hit on one of those, but the big names, they go pretty quickly. And even and John Runyon at that position was relatively a pretty good free agent. He was. Most people, I would say, have him, top 5 at guard, maybe somewhere in that
Football
range.
Focus had him 7.
7.
And he got $10 million per. That's pretty good for the 7th-ranked free agent guard. Runyon did well for himself from the Giants.
Yeah, I thought he would have been a decent fit. Not that the Eagles believe in Jeff Steltman, though. So, and they should, by the way, as Chris Franklin will tell you. I see Chris has arrived in the green room.
Well, then we'll take a time out here and we'll punch up Chris Franklin next, heofnj.com. And very interested to see what he thinks about the 2 major acquisitions. We all like the Dickerson signing. He's one of the best guards in the league. They made him the highest paid guard. They're active, proactive rather than reactive. Good for Howie Roseman. But the 2 acquisitions, John is less of a fan of one than I am. And it sounds like John's more of a fan of the other one. He likes one. I don't want to speak for you, John.
No, I think one makes sense, and I think one doesn't make sense. That's how I would describe it.
Does making sense matter as much as whether it's actually?
No, it's always if you get it right.
Right.
It always comes down to evaluation. It's always if you get it right. But I always say with the Eagles' decision making, as I said with Les, generally I understand their decision making. It makes sense to me, and that's why I think they have one of the best organizations. I don't think they made sense yesterday on one of their decisions.
Yeah, and the devil's in the details, and we don't have all the details yet on either of the 2 contracts. But as sure as I'm telling you, Saquon Barkley will not see the third year of that contract. It'll either be redone or he's gone. Oh, I'm going to tell you the same thing about Mr. Huff. He is not, and I don't know the details yet, but I'm assuming what the details are going to be. And I'm telling you, he's going to be a 2-year wonder, exactly the same as Jason Babin. Could have this amazing first year, and the second year, they go, yeah, but he really does hurt us against the run. I like that. I think they'll get much more production in the first 2 years out of Saquon. I think there's a better chance Saquon gets a redone deal and or lives for the third year of that deal than I do believe in Huff. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. Mac and Mac talking to Greg Franklin of NJ.com next.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Jody McDonald, John McMullen, joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Chris Franklin, who's off to church again today. What's that T stand for again? Trenton Times?
The old Gloucester County Times. The old Gloucester County. That's the building. Yeah.
No matter how many times Jody sees it, he thinks he's at
I pray at the altar of Chris Franklin. I feel I must genuflect whenever I see that T in the background.
Yeah. Well, you're sure as hell going to hell then. Holy crap. No,
that was long since predetermined. That was before you ever popped up with the T in the background, buddy. My direction, north or south, was predetermined. Yeah, I'm going down. Are the Eagles going down by signing Saquon Barkley? Was this a ridiculous, stupid, foolish signing? Or did the Eagles just get themselves back in the Super Bowl mix with that? I love the fact that everybody's got to go to the diametrically opposite ends. Oh, my God, greatest signing in Eagles history ever. Or what the hell is Howie Roseman thinking? We know that the answer's somewhere in the middle. What's your middle for Saquon Barkley, big guy?
My middle is I think looks like they're going all in on the offense and just trying to make that the strength, overall strength, and defensively, you're just trying to get it up ahead so you can let the defense try to get that pass rush. That's why I thought it was interesting with both moves, because now you got a guy who is so tough to try to defend. Like, okay, defensive coordinators have to go, all right, how the hell am I going to try to make sure I can defend him out the backfield? And oh yeah, I still got to worry about AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and that type of trying to take away. You got to take away one, so it's going to open up so much for everybody else. The thing is, to me, it's a high risk, high reward. I was shocked that they went. Honestly, I'm shocked that they went that high. They paid that much for a running back. I mean, and if I'm DeAndre and if I'm Miles Sanders, like what, guys,
Sanders.
What yeah. I'm not worth it. Like one of those things, but
well, that's what I look at this and I said that was my description, Chris, is typically I get the Eagles thinking. Typically when they make a move, I may not agree with it, but I typically understand their thought process and I usually agree with the thought process. Here, I don't agree with their thought process. Evidently, they think this player is worthy of busting the tendency, so to speak, of how they typically build the team at running back. And I just think they misevaluate the player. I think they're thinking about the 2018 Saquon Barkley, the Saquon Barkley before the torn ACL Saquon Barkley. I don't think he's been that guy. In 2018 in NFL years, that might as well be the Middle Ages. I mean, this league moves so fast. Did they get over? I'm trying to get the right word. Did they look at the San Francisco 49ers and what Christian McCaffrey did for the 49ers and just become so enamored with that they're going down the copycat route and saying, well, this is the next best guy we can get. Let's try to do what they did.
I think they should have copycat. They should have gotten that defensive line, started loading up on that and fix that defense. I think if anything, that would have been the side. But, I think I do think that played a factor into it. I don't think it was an overarching thing. I think it was one of those things where they looked and say, you know what? If there was you look at the injuries that happened on this team, especially down the wet stretch, and you saw how much that offense changed dramatically in what they call. I think they say, you know what? We need to load up as many weapons as we can on that side of the ball in order to prevent something like that happening. If somebody were to go out, barring the quarterback, of course. But if something were to happen that way too, we just want to be so dynamic and tougher to cover and just try to basically outscore everybody that we're playing their style of philosophy of ball where they can just go up, get a big lead, and then try to rush the passer as much as they can. To me, the only thing I really look at this is like, you paid this big money. Could that money have gone to potentially signing McKinney instead of Saquon? And 13's a lot. If you did that, I think they just went and say, you know what? This is an offensive team. Offense beats out the defense.
And I will once again make my argument for Saquon is going to come here and kill it. 2018 Giants had Eli Manning, legitimate quarterback. Don't know if he's a Hall of Famer. We'll find that out this year. But he was still a legitimate quarterback at that time. Had a guy by the name of Odell Beckham Jr., who was also in the young stages of his career and was one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League. And a legitimate offensive line. Not a great offensive line, but a legitimate offensive line. He's had none of that the last couple of years. So shockingly, his production's gone down because he's playing with Danny Dimes and Tommy DeVito.
Tommy DeVito.
His numbers are going to go down.
But I'm going to go. Wait a minute, though. Just in general, because Aaron Jones just signed this morning, Chris, and remember the playoff he just had, and remember the end of the season he just had, and he's too old to get a 2-year contract in this league. 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. And if the Eagles are going back to 2018 to evaluate a player.
No, you went back to 2018.
Well,
I don't know what the Eagles are doing.
But I'm saying I don't believe the Eagles are doing it. But you were going back to 2018 and saying Eli Manning, Odell Beckham Jr. I'm like, you can't go back to 2018. 2018's ancient history.
You said I have not seen the 2018 Saquon Barkley in years. Well, you went back to 2018. I went back to 2018. I explained why he was that good. He actually had teammates. He had
No,
nothing the last
we're already arguing with Chris. We always argue when Chris is here. The
You know what, next-
explosiveness,
I gotta popcorn next time.
the athleticism, it's gone since the ACL. Not gone. He's still a tremendous athlete, but he's not the same guy he was post ACL as pre ACL. That's my assumption. That's my presumption.
There's been years that have been tacked on, especially when you wear and tear with that thing. And the only other benefit I can see coming out of him compared to 2018 to now is that he's not playing on that turf up in MetLife. So maybe that gives him an extra
that'll
year.
help. Yes, that will help.
But I also look at that. He's taking some hits, even though he's taking some hits behind the offensive line. You can't, and to be fair, you can't say the automatic thing about the Eagles now because you got questions. Cam Jurgens, we haven't seen him at center in NFL, like a prolonged thing against number ones. And then you have a question. If you move him over for center, you got a question of who's going to be the right guard. So it's not a given thing that this offensive line. Like, you think they have a shot, like the offensive line is not an automatic. I think with Stoutland, you can automatically think like, okay, you'll get these guys fair as best you can, but we still don't know yet because we haven't seen this new interior right side of his line. Because
all right, I'm gonna go way out on a limb and say, even without Jason Kelce, losing Jason Kelce, a Hall of Fame center, Jason Kelce, the Eagles' offensive line this year will be significantly better than the Giants' offensive line was last year. So I'm gonna predict on Saquon getting more yards this year.
I'm gonna agree with that.
The ball for the Eagles. You're gonna get out there on that limb with me, for those guys. Are you in with me? Come on, the Giants stunk this past. They had one of the worst offensive lines in the last 20 years in the National Football League. And you're going to judge Saquon Barkley because of the season he had last year playing behind that line of crap? I'm not.
They had my guy Tyre Phillips until he got hurt.
I liked him, man. I missed that. I missed him in the locker room. But yeah, I'd say all those hits he had to take because that line was awful. That wears down on you.
Here's the one thing I will say.
He had a terrible supporting cast, no doubt about it.
Here's the one thing I think was overstated. Chris did it. I got calls on it last night on WIP, the whole giant turf thing. I actually think that might not be as big a plus as big a minus as you guys think. He plays on it all the time. He knows that turf. Other players coming in on defense have no idea what that friggin' turf's all about. I actually think that's a benefit when you're on offense.
I'm talking for a health standpoint. It's good for him to get the hell off that turf. That's all I mean. I'm not saying just from a health standpoint.
Imagine if he played his whole entire career at the Eagles and he was on that type of grass because the Eagles use that blended stuff, but it's a lot better. It's a lot more grass. Imagine if he was on that type of thing, how much healthier he would have been, how much lead would have saved, and how much spring he would still have on top of this. So yeah, it's just keep that damn turf.
Well, here,
all right, for World Cup.
here's the deal: 1,069 yards, Pro Bowl, 4.6 yards per carry. That's DeAndre Swift, somewhere 1060 something. The year prior, Miles Sanders, 1,260 something, Pro Bowl, 4.9 yards per carry, and he was over 5 for most of the year and struggled later in the year. That's pretty good. That's pretty good production. Let's say Saquon hits how much better are you really going to get than that production? What is the ceiling? Are we talking about 1,600 yards? And if we are, how does that affect the rest of the offense? AJ Brown wants the ball. Devontae Smith wants the ball. Dallas Goedert wants the ball. Chris Franklin wants the football. How does that affect the offense?
Chris Franklin wants to throw it and get the heck out of that pass rush. Nah, I think when you look at the thing is, so Swift, he should have had about 1,200, 1,250 if he actually used that stretch of games where he only had 21 touches between the two combined. So I thought he should have had even more. I think a good season for him, for Saquon, will be 1,600 yards combined because I like the fact that you can keep him in. He can be the outlet. And I think there's going to be more of an emphasis this year of Jalen Hurts trying to utilize that outlet and throw into the running backs a little bit more than what we've seen what we saw last year. So I think overall, when you look at his overall thing, even when you have AJ, they can still incorporate that. Last year, they still could incorporate it last year. I think some of the play calling had something to do with it, and that actually had success. So they can still get the ball to AJ's, Devontae, Dallas, and still feed all those guys. It's just a matter of instead of just going, okay, we're going to run a draw, you can say, okay, we can do a wide receiver dream or put him in motion,
Well,
do a quick
bubble
swing pass,
screen.
use the
Now
run.
they use Saquon on the bubble screens because I advocated they should have used DeAndre on the bubble screens. Because running backs can make the first guy miss, whereas receivers are going to have a more difficult time doing that. I would like that.
I thought you were anti-bubble screen, period, Johnny.
I am, but I acknowledge
Well,
it's
you
part
just
of
said
the
you're
modern.
advocating using Saquon on the bubble
Well, I'm
screen
not.
this year.
That's part of the modern NFL. I'm not. I don't stick my head in the sand. Everybody runs bubble screens. I think they're the most not aesthetic play in the history of football, but people throw them and they're going to use them. So if you're going to do it, you might as well utilize it the best way possible. That's where I am.
The one thing I'm really looking forward to, and I know it's getting like two check and everything else, but they use that bunch formation. You put Saquon on the outside, and Kellen Moore likes to use that late motion that's in vogue right now, forcing defenses to really make late adjustments and scramble on that one too. You put him in motion, and somehow you get him lined up against a linebacker or a safety in space and let him be able to run that. He's not Christian McCaffrey in terms of his route running, but he's a decent route runner. You put him in space, you can get 5, 10, maybe 15 yards to chunk. If you get a missed tackle, as we saw, or you get a guy against, like, say, a guy like Nolan Smith, which we saw last year, get him in that space up the sideline. You get some explosive plays out of that.
Yeah.
All right, Chris Franklin, need your reaction to this. I said this earlier in the show, and I'm standing by it. Bryce Huff under Washburn equals Jason Babin under Washburn. Now, it's two different Washburns, but the results will be the same. 1 year wonder comes in and gets everybody excited.
I think this is your Jets angst coming out.
And then crash and burn.
Like, for me, if this was the plan to replace Hassan or Josh, I have a little angst because to me, I have reservations about him being on the first down or second down, typical running downs. I don't want him to get run over. I don't want to be out of position or anything else like that. If for 1 year, and I know the only thing you probably get back is comp picks, which wouldn't help you for 2026, I think it was 2026, something like that. I'd keep all three. Personally, I would, because you don't have to pay you're paying the defensive tackles on rookie deals. You still have Nakobe Dean on a rookie deal. You got other guys what they're paying. I'd roll with him for just 1 year. Have him be your rotational piece. Because the last time you look at when the Eagles are really successful, they have two lines, two pairs of edge rushers that really get after the quarterback. You look at 2017, look at 2022. They had two consistent lines that really got after it. If you add him, say that offense is up, and then you add Huff to go along with, say, Sweat or Reddick, what have you, and you have that, and you rotate him for Rosie Smith, Graham, and all that stuff, going after the quarterback when they're up, I think that adds a lot more depth, and this makes his defense a lot more potent than having that.
I brought this up with Les Bowen when we had him on earlier. I'm going to bring it up with you now. How is that going to play in the locker room? Yeah, we know we got you on the cheap for the last 2 years, Hassan. We know you overachieved your $15 million per, but you just shut up and play. You're under contract. Come back and play. And then we'll get a comp pick for you when you go out the door after the year. How is that going to play in a room that lost Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, and has a head coach that's probably on the hottest seat in the National Football League? One of your actual best players and leaders, you're going, shut up and play. How's that going to work for the Eagles in the locker room this year?
I think if Howie or Nick said that, as it says, shut up and play, I think we probably would see, we hear rumblings of a fight going on inside the NovaCare Center. But I look at the fact and say, you know what? I think it's going to happen. I think if anything, I think Sweat would be the one who stays just because of his age and stuff like that. But I really think, you got to, you can't ignore that type of thing. And even if he's upset, like last year, you could tell, when Bosa got signed, and you tell it was he wanted to be among those people, and you could tell it was in his mind, something like that. I think that's one of the reasons why he didn't talk, because he's very honest, and if he did that, and it really created a thing. So I would be surprised if he just says, if it happens, we may not be able to talk to him as much because he wants to keep that quiet, not rock the boat. And I don't think he'll be a malcontent outwardly saying nah, pay me, or I'm not saying outwardly, but it wouldn't sit right. But I think at the same time, when you get game 3, game 4, game 5 of the season, and then you realize, you're doing pretty well depending on what the schedule have is, I think that'll take care of itself, and just got to roll with it and take the chance, or at least for one season.
Well, we talked about this before you came on, Chris. The Eagles have to do something for two reasons. One, they don't want him to play under the final year of his contract because of his cap hit, which is pushed all the way back, and it's over 21 million. So they want to adjust it too. You said something interesting about Bryce Huff that I hadn't considered. If they are able to work something out with Hassan Reddick, they bump him up to 19 million, 20 million, whatever. Get that cap number down. Do you think they would pay $17 million for a third rotational rusher as that, guy reliever, so to speak, coming out of the bullpen on third down to go get the quarterback? You think they would do that?
It would be conventional, but I think when you look at the positions that they really value along in their overall organizational philosophy,
yeah,
that would be that. I wouldn't say it's completely out the realm. I think it still could be a possibility. Would I put guarantee and say right now, hey, you know what, you got to make a decision right now? You're not. I probably say no, but you can't take that out the realm of possibility because edge rusher, corner, tackles, quarterback, those are the ones they really value.
Yeah, and the cap has gone up significantly.
And this is where I differentiate with the Eagles just in general, but I think they're coming around. I got less problems paying a back 12 million and change than I do a one down out of every three defensive edge rusher 17 million. You're paying a guy $5 more million per to play two less downs out of every three. Saquon's going to be on the field every single down. We agree with that. He's a 3-down back. There's not going to be very infrequently Kenny Gainwell coming in for a change of pace. Kenny Gainwell just saw his playing time get cut significantly yesterday. So you got a guy who plays 2.5 downs per series as compared to a guy who plays 1.5 downs per series. I'll pay more to the guy who's playing playing 2.5 more down, 2.5 downs per series. That's why I got no problems with the Barkley deal.
See, I'll counter that with the third down. When you look at this team's third down defense, and it was last year was atrocious. You can say a lot of things with the defense, especially late, was atrocious. But when you look at the third down defense and the ability when it comes to rushing the passer, getting the ball out quicker, not having to
Reddick get more sacks than Huff did.
Yeah. Well, 11, but of course, quarter one, he had more than 6.5 with Josh Sweat as well too. But I think when you look at you rotate those guys in, you just need rushers. You need to get that ball out quicker than what happened instead of letting these quarterbacks go apart, pick it apart. Because now you're not relying on Slay and Bradbury having to cover as long as you can. You're not relying on whoever's going to be in the slot to cover as long as you can. So they just need guys to basically go out there and just make the quarterback uncomfortable as quick as you possibly can. And I think even for one down,
well, if Pop can play against Jack Driscoll each week, the Eagles are going to get a star. You know that. But Huff had 10 sacks, I think, in 440 snaps, and Hassan had 11 in 910. So that was the difference in the. Now, it's all relative.
440 snaps. That's a part-time player.
Yes, it is. But
they pay 17 million per season for a part-time player.
The pressure percentage is off the charts. That's the trick of free agency. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to find the younger guy with upside who can become more than what he has been. Again, I go back to Brandon Brooks being the best example of that in recent Eagles history. Nobody knew Brandon Brooks coming out of Houston was going to be the best right guard in football. He developed into that here in Philadelphia. That's what you're hoping to do in free agency at all times. And that's why I get with Huff, I don't know if it's going to work. Nobody knows if it's going to work, but I get it. I don't get Saquon because 1,500 touches. As we said, the injuries, tread off the tire. He's not 30. Like I brought up Aaron Jones because he was so good down the stretch of last season, but he's 29. He's got a lot of tread off the tire. He got a 1-year deal. They're giving Saquon all this money. It doesn't make sense to me. So maybe it works, but it's not typical Eagle thinking. Is that crazy or am I off the reservation, Chris?
Well, yeah, it's like the fact they give that much money for a running back is, to me, this is the biggest running back signing to me since Ricky Waters, because that even back then when that happened, I was like, okay, yeah, especially coming off the transition tag and everything. Yeah, that was a lot for them. But I still look at potentially say maybe if I had to say like if somebody would say you can have DeAndre Swift and Aaron Jones, or you can have Saquon by himself, I'd probably save a little bit more money, and also I think I could have gotten a little bit more to try to address that defense. But still, that's to me that's it all matters. Like the Saquon sign, I want to see what they do with the rest of the defense, because if they're able to fill out a lot of holes with impactful guys, because that one, then I can justify the Saquon sign. If they say, oh, we ran out of money and we didn't have enough to fill the positions that we needed to.
Well, you brought up an interesting point I didn't think about. Like, does that affect you going after Xavier McKinney?
I think it did.
You have to bail out on that. But at some point, don't you need to bail out if it goes too high? Because he got 17 million. I don't think anybody saw that coming. So maybe they just bailed out because it went too high. But it's an interesting discussion. I will say that.
All right. So I'm gonna hold both your feet to the fire here. Who's gonna be a better per dollar player for the Eagles next year? Huff or Barkley?
Ooh. Per dollar?
Per dollar player. They paid Mr. Huff, who had one good year, 3 years, made the NFL out of Wisconsin, undrafted. He's no TJ Edwards, I can tell you that. And they paid him $17 million off one big statistical year. Barkley had one of the best rookie seasons ever in the National Football League. And with the Giants has been on a steady decline ever since. But his level is what his level is. Now you're adding him to a better offense. I don't know that you're adding Huff to a better defense, because the Jets defense was pretty damn good in that last year. So I think Huff might actually take a step backwards rather than a step forward. Who's going to earn their salary more this year, Huff or Barkley?
I think Barkley is. I think
Same here.
Just overall, I think just you're looking at him that I look what you can do with him, and there's so many options. I think he makes everybody else better. So I think overall, Barkley would be that guy.
If I'm betting, I would agree with you guys. I think the Eagles better hope it's Huff. They better hope it's Huff, because they need. And the assumption is one of them's going to be gone, Hassan Reddick or Josh Sweat. They need a pass rush, and they're going to count on this guy to give them a pass rush and a consistent pass rush. So they better hope it's Bryce Huff, because they have other things on offense, plenty of skill position players. So I'll ask you to put on your Kellen Moore hat, Chris Franklin, and all of a sudden, Kellen Moore. This looks great on paper. This is off-season talk. This is vacuum talk. Oh, I got AJ, I got Devontae, I got Dallas, I got Saquon. As you mentioned, I'm going to get Saquon in a bunch form. I'm going to get him in space. You talk all this stuff in the offseason. Then the games come. And you got to keep everybody happy. And they all think they're stars. And for the most part, they're right. And they all want to be involved. Good luck, Kellen Moore. What about the dream team vibe of this? Have the Eagles gone a little bit too far in, let's put an all-star team together?
No, because I think when you look at when he was with the Cowboys in 2021, you look at that team that they had. Yeah, Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard as running backs, which if you compare that, maybe looks at say, hey, that's Saquon and Kenneth Gainwell-ish, because Pollard and Gainwell are a similar type player. I'm not going to say
Memphis. They're both from
I'm not going to say there's just a little gap here. I'm not going to say like, Gainwell is that, but that. And then you look at Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. I think Gallup was there too. And look at that, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith.
Gallup pre-ACL was a good player. Post-ACL, not so much.
So I think he knows. He's been through this before. I think he knows that. And that, by the way, that offense in 2021 finished the top offense in the league too. So I think he's got experience with that. I think he'll get him in a good position and got no qualms about it.
Right. What year was the dream team again?
2011.
2011.
And who was one of the key acquisitions? Dream team year?
Was that the Ronnie Brown?
That's
was
not
it Ronnie
who I'm
Brown?
referring to. Nor Vince Young. Nor what DB did they get?
Oh,
they
Nabi
signed.
Osborne?
Jason Babin is a free agent in 2011. That's right. 2011 was the dream team. Jason Babin, 18 sacks. How'd that work out in year 2 for the Eagles with their big free agent signing?
Hey, it worked out better than most of them. At least they got a year. At least they got production for a year. Worked out better than most of them. But it's not, and I shouldn't bring up the term dream team because I got in trouble with that yesterday. But I'm not saying in free agency.
Trouble from who?
Fans. I'm joking.
Okay.
Who cares? But I'm not talking about how they're approaching free agency. I'm talking about just putting in all-star. I should use the term all-star team. Putting together big names, big name trap, big name. AJ's at the top of his game. AJ's one of the best receivers in football. Devontae Smith, phenomenal. Dallas Goedert, let's be honest, coming off a bit of a down year. I think it was underachieving from his standpoint. And I don't think Saquon's in the category of AJ and Devontae, but he's a big name. And with big name, with big contract comes big expectations. And that's why I was talking about free agency in general, Chris. And I'll end it here at C. Franklin News. Make sure you follow Chris on Twitter, X, NJ.com. You can read them there. Generally, the really, really star players in the NFL, the Chris Joneses, the Brian Burnses, they never get to real free agency because they're tagged. They might get moved like Brian Burns.
Jones did.
Chris Jones. But he re-signed. He gets deals. I'm saying they never get to real free agency where they can choose where they want to go because they're tagged and they're working out and they're going to be in Kansas City or they're going to be in Carolina or Carolina's going to make the decision to trade. They never get true baseball NBA free agency where they can just pick a place where they want to go. The best players. So you get to the top players on free agency, and Albert Breer pointed this out this morning from 2022. It's basically B-level players getting A-level money and A-level expectations. And then they get cut in 2 years, as Jody's pointing about with Jason Babin. That's generally what happens. Is that fair to say or unfair? Are we looking at Saquon Barkley, A-level expectations, B talent, Bryce Huff, A-level expectations, B talent? Is that too harsh?
I think it's a little harsh. I think Huff still has a lot of years to improve. They're paying for projection with Huff. That's all that is. That money's like, okay, we're going to try to get him more cheap if he really takes off, and then all of a sudden he gets like 16, 17 sacks, excuse me. Then you're looking at that contract and go, wow, that was a good deal for the time because the cap's going up and he's going that one too. I still think Saquon's a talent. I really think he is. And the only thing that concerns me is the injury thing. And even if you get 2 years, but those 2 years you say go to an NFC Championship game, maybe a Super Bowl in one of them, then it's completely worth it. You'll take that risk over any time because it means that one too, especially if you win it too. So I look at that talent. I look at what overall we can do. And overall, the talk excited. And you made your division opponent weaker. They were already weak to begin with, but you made them weaker. So, me, it winds up being worth it, too, in my opinion.
All right, we'll finish it on this note. As you mentioned, your competition in division, your rivals. Will the Dallas Cowboys sign a free agent today? They took the collar yesterday. Ofer, Jerry, we're all in this year, signed no free agents yesterday. Will they get one today, Chris Franklin?
I think it is. I think Jerry's going to break into Steven's room and go like, "What are you doing? I need this. I need the Cowboys to be buzzed. We need to be on ESPN. We need to be on sports. We need to be everybody talking about us. Why haven't we done anything? We got to change something." And it'll be
real quick. When are people going to realize the Cowboys are not a splashy team? They have never. Jerry's not a splashy guy. He doesn't. But for some reason, well, he is when he talks. He says it, but and people assume he makes all these crazy. They're one of the most conservative teams in football. They have been for years.
Jerry talks the talk much more than he walks the walk. You are 100% right, Johnny Mac. All right, we're running late. We got to let Chris Franklin go. We got to thank him for joining us. Appreciate your
going down to Lando, Chris Franklin. Lando,
I'm looking forward to that.
Signing his contract.
70 degrees here out there, 70 degrees down there. I'm looking forward to that in a couple of weeks. That's gonna be good. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, nice day out. Yes.
Oh, gosh, I love this time of weather. Birds might be. I don't know. Maybe a couple of weeks. Maybe the birds might make an appearance again. I
Oh, we're
don't
going to
know.
bring the
Hopefully,
Franklin Birds back to the
I'm
show.
hoping
We're
if
very
it's
much
nice.
looking forward to that.
If
Chris,
it's
good
nice.
stuff. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Chris Franklin, NJ.com. Here with us on Birds 365. All right, quickie timeout, come back. We're going to put a bow on the show. Going to wrap things up for you here on Birds 365. Hey, Birds fans, here's your chance to save upwards of 40% on your car insurance right now from one of JAKIB Sports' great partners. Here's what you need to do. Call managing partner either Jim or Fran and tell them you're a friend of both JAKIB Sports and Birds 365.
My name is Fran Salerno, and I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
All right, Mac and Mac guys here with you on Birds 365. All right, Johnny Mac, I need a prediction out of you before we wrap up the show. I'm going to give you a bunch of names. You take whichever one you want. Cameron Curl, Jordan Fuller, Jordan Whitehead, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Deshaun Gibson, Jeremy Chin, Micah Hyde, J-Ron Curse. That's about, 7 or 8 there. We know the preferences who are the best. And Simmons, I got to put Simmons in there too. Will the Eagles have one of those guys signed before you and I come back on the air tomorrow? Will they sign a top?
I think.
And by the way, Winfield not included, Kyle Duggar not included, McKinney gone, Geno Stone gone. So there's a bunch of guys that are off the board who are even better. I gave you a list of 6 or 7 of the top 10. Will the Eagles have one of the top 10?
I do think they're going to get safety done today. And we'll see. Now, you mentioned Antoine with perfect example. That's an A-level talent that never gets to real free agency. And you know, there are other guys certainly valuable. And we talked about Simmons, but I think they're going to get something done. CJ, maybe a much cheaper option, certainly at this stage. I can guarantee the Eagles are going to sign a player because they have signed a player. So we get one thanks to our buddy Zach Berman for breaking this news. The Eagles are signing a center, Jody McDonald, Matt Hennessy. Used to play with the Atlanta Falcons, coming off his rookie deal. Temple guy. So he's coming home. Former 3rd-round pick, backup center, Matt Hennessy.
I got no problems with a depth signing. You need some depth along the offensive line. Get some depth along the offensive line. Do you think there's any chance he competes for the starting center position?
Not at all. I think it's a complete depth signing. But it is interesting that they're going to get a backup center. We kind of talked about it with Landon Dickerson. By the way, Landon's also going to talk. He's signing his contract today.
Landon's going to talk before the offensive coordinator ever talks. When did they hire the new offensive coordinator?
They're gonna talk rookie minicamp, judging by the way the Eagles have done business. So Lando's going to sign his contract. He'll be talking later today, 1:30ish. Matt Hennessy. Another indication, because we talked about that before, Landon's staying at left guard. They're not moving.
Him coming at center, not happening anytime soon. I think even if there's an injury, I think they'll plug in Matt Hennessy before they'll go, we really need the center. We better move Dickerson, but not happening. He's staying right where he is at left guard. All right, Johnny Mac, good show today. You and me back tomorrow. You're in?
I'm in. Let's do it.
Mac and Mac in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 360.